President Donald Trump wraps up his fourth week in the White House here on Washington Journal on this Sunday, February 19th, 2017. We're going to focus on his comments this week regarding the media and at yesterday's rally in Melbourne, Florida as well. In particular, one of the tweets this week by President Trump on the media being the enemy of the people. As we look at video from yesterday's rally in Melbourne, we're going to ask you for the first hour this morning, is the media the enemy of the people? Here's how to join the conversation. For Republicans, use 202-748-8001. Democrats, 202-748-8000. And for all others, that's 202-748-8002. You can also send us a tweet. We're at C-SPAN WJ. We welcome your comments on Facebook as well, facebook.com/C-SPAN. We'll show you some of the rally from Melbourne, but we want to start first with the tweet that got some note on Friday after the president's news conference this week, posting this tweet Friday afternoon saying the fake news media, failing New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, CNN, is not my enemy. It is the enemy of the American people. That's where our question is coming from this morning. The president returning to that theme in his rally yesterday in Melbourne, Florida. Here's a look at the Wall Street Journal reporting this morning in their headline, Donald Trump ramps up media attacks at raucous Florida rally. President pushes back after a rocky 4 weeks into a term that has largely on the defensive. Carol Lee of the Wall Street Journal writing that with made-for-TV entrance descending Air Force One, followed by attacks on the news media and Washington establishment that were trademarks of his campaign, President Donald Trump on Saturday launched a broadside against his critics in front of thousands of supporters who sent him to the White House. Quote, "I'm here because I want to be among my friends and among my people," Mr. Trump said. What amounted to his first victory lap since taking office was a calculated move by Mr. Trump to push back aggressively after a rocky 4 weeks into his term that has largely on the defensive. As part of the campaign to reset the narrative, writes the Wall Street Journal, Mr. Trump cast the media as his lead opponent. He drew cheers by decrying, quote, the filter of fake news and the dishonest media, which has published one false story after another with no sources, even though they pretend to have them. Again, the question for you this morning, is the media the enemy of the people? The reporting this morning of the New York Times, Trump returns to campaign after a month in office. We'll look at that, excuse me, a look at the large crowd that was gathered in Melbourne, Florida, about 100 miles north or so of Mar-a-Lago, where the president is for the weekend. Peter Baker writing that gathering thousands of cheerful supporters in an airport hangar, Mr. Trump put aside the stress of Washington governing and returned to the campaign trail, where he reprised many of his greatest hits themes and lines from last year and drank in the adulation of the crowd. Buoyant and energized, he invited one fan on stage for a hug and even briefly turned over the microphone. Your thoughts? Is the media the enemy of the people? To St. Louis, and we hear from Stephen on our independent line. Good morning.
Morning. I don't believe the media is an enemy of the people, but what I will say for the first time, and I'm 69 years old, for the first time in following elections, presidential elections, and I'm retired, so I can gaze through all the channels and kind of get viewpoints from different perspectives. But what I've seen is, and it's a bit disturbing to me, number one, we need a free press. Okay, we need that. That is very important. That is where hopefully we will get the truth. So I am an advocate of the First Amendment and free speech. But what I have seen is it just seems too many stations, no matter what President Trump would do, they never delve into with their panels something good he's done. I don't think they ever will. I believe that there is a huge force out there that is against this man no matter what.
Do you think the major newspaper, the major media, newspapers, television, are harder on President Trump than they were on Barack Obama a month into his presidency?
Now, maybe he brought some of this on himself because he is different. I know he's not a politician. He'll never be a politician. But I just think that it would be refreshing once in a while to see some of the media, some of the TV stations, to give the guy an accolade once in a while, okay? I mean, if he's screwing up, Go after them. I'm all for that. Let the public know. I don't buy into the fake news as much as everybody else, but I just have never seen such negativity on the major cable channels, even local channels. That's my comment. I think
Okay.
I just haven't seen anything positive.
Let's go to New York City and hear next from Mark on our Republican line. Welcome.
Good morning. It's very clear to me that the press is not the enemy of the people. I'm very concerned as a Republican, and I voted for Donald Trump. To my mind, the Trump administration looks like it's spinning out of control with these so-called judges, and the press is the enemy of the people. A distinguished admiral who refuses to take the important position in the National Security Council. I'm very, very concerned. I'm having a little bit of buyer's remorse about voting for Trump. I have to be candid. I didn't expect that within 30 days, this kind of chaos, but also dissension and controversy. I also wasn't very happy about the press conference, particularly with the treatment of the reporter who spoke about anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. My parents were in Auschwitz. I don't really appreciate that. I don't appreciate it. I think that a lot of what we're seeing here is chaos, and the ship of state must right itself. We have institutions, the press, the courts, the Congress, and they're there for a reason. Our founders put these ideas, and they put freedom of the press in Amendment number 1 for a reason.
On that chaos that Mark mentioned, a tweet from President Trump yesterday, kind of responding to some of that. Don't believe the mainstream fake news media. The White House is running very well. I inherited a mess, and I'm in the process of fixing it. To our Democrats line, we hear from Woodstock, Georgia next up. Good morning, Diane.
Hello. Yes, I would just like to say that Donald Trump is projecting. He is making up absurd stories and is not dealing in reality. And his aides and things like that, spokespeople like Conway, although I think she can actually tell reality from fantasy, but I don't know if Trump can at this point. I'm beginning to wonder if he doesn't have Alzheimer's. It's clear he's a narcissist. And
Diane, we lost Diane. We'll go to our Republican line, independent line next in Wells, Maine. Let's go to Wells, Maine. Alan, are you there? Independent line.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Just wanted to point out that aside from C-SPAN and PBS, the media basically is a captured and controlled entity. I like to call it the media propaganda sector of the empire, the overall empire, which includes 6 other sectors. But just dealing with the media propaganda sector.
What do you mean? What do you mean by an empire or sector?
Well, the empire is the ruling structure of the world now, and we have for the first time an effectively disguised and truly global and capitalist-fueled empire. It's never existed on the earth before. It exists now in the 21st century. It has existed.
Asking you this morning about Donald Trump and his view of the media, in particular, calling the mainstream media, the enemy of the people in a tweet on Friday. 202-748-8001 for Republicans. Democrats, 202-748-8000. Independents and all others, 202-748-8002. Headline this morning in the Washington Post: after a month of turmoil, Trump attempts a reset at a Florida rally. They write that in an interview Saturday, Reince Priebus, the chief of staff, disputed the notion that a reset was in the works. Quote, "I wouldn't call it a reset because we're quite proud of a lot of the achievements over the past 4 weeks," he said, citing efforts to cut regulations on businesses and 3 foreign leader visits, among other developments. "I think we've accomplished a lot. I think the media has been fixated on a couple of issues that are totally bogus." But Priebus and Deputy Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders acknowledged that the White House is moving to put Trump out front more, a decision Sanders attributed to frustration with media coverage. Saturday's rally could be the first in a series of such events, she said. Let's go to our Republican line and hear next from Carl in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. Good morning.
Good morning. You folks know that I watch this show every day, and I do believe that the media, the press, is far left, and they are still upset because they rooted so hard for Hillary to win, and she didn't win. So they're taking it out on Donald Trump. And I would like to know, do you folks vet the people you have on your program every day? I was watching this guy yesterday. He's got a website trying to stir up everybody to impeach the president already after 30 days. He wants to impeach the president. I was watching this guy, and he looked like a robot, and he acted like a robot. And you could look in his eyes, and you could tell the light was on, but nobody was home. I mean, I think the guy forgot to take his meds that morning. And you people were letting 3 out of 4 callers come in and agree with him. Didn't you have anybody that disagreed with this guy? I watch this show all the time, and I was just kind of disturbed by watching this program.
Well, Carl, I hope you'd agree that we do try to bring views from all sides, and some days you'll hear a guest from one side, maybe certainly from an anti-Trump side, and some days you're going to hear some real supporters of the president. So our effort is really trying to bring a balanced view in terms of the views that are out there. But I hear what you're saying about yesterday's guest. I appreciate you calling in this morning. We were asking you this morning about Donald Trump's view of the media, a theme he returned to in yesterday's rally in Melbourne, Florida. Here's some of what he said.
I also want to speak to you without the filter of the fake news. The dishonest media, which has published one false story after another, with no sources, even though they pretend they have them, they make them up in many cases. They just don't want to report the truth, and they've been calling us wrong now for 2 years. They don't get it, but they're starting to get it. I can tell you that. They've become a big part of the problem. They are part of the corrupt system. Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, and Abraham Lincoln, and many of our greatest presidents fought with the media and called them out, oftentimes on their lies. When the media lies to people, I will never, ever let them get away with it. I will do whatever I can that they don't get away with it. They have their own agenda, and their agenda is not your agenda. In fact, Thomas Jefferson said, "Nothing can be believed which is seen in a newspaper. Truth itself," he said, "becomes suspicious by being put into that polluted vehicle." That was June 14th, my birthday, 1807. But despite all their lies, misrepresentations, and false stories, they could not defeat us in the primaries, and they could not defeat us in the general election, and we will continue to expose them for what they are, and most importantly, we will continue to win, win, win. We are not going to let the fake news tell us what to do, how to live, or what to believe. We are free and independent people, and we will make our own choices.
And all of yesterday's rally available at cspan.org. Asking you this morning, is the media, according to President Trump, the enemy of the people? Lots of comments on Twitter, too, at CSPAN WJ is how you reach us. Here's one from Steve who says, not at all. They scrutinize Mr. Trump more carefully because of an aversion to the truth. He is an unusual lightning rod. Rebecca says, during the campaign, media gave Donald J. Trump a pass on problems with Trump Foundation, failures, mob connections, building trades, hiring illegals. Sledge says, the media is ignoring real important questions like a pack of barking dogs, utter nonsense, bogus issues. And this one says, yes, watch CNN for 5 minutes, see for yourself, obvious propaganda. Franklin says, Trump is following the dictator's handbook by first discrediting the press. And one also from Donna, who says, no, we need the media. We also need too many choices when it comes to the news. Why do you ask? We're asking because of a tweet by President Donald Trump on Friday. Let's hear from Tom in Conway, South Carolina on the Independent line. Thanks for waiting, Tom. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for accepting my call. I see the media like during his when during the primaries where they were supporting him because he was a showman and they were getting a lot of ratings and attention from him. But I seen them turn on him, and I see through the election that they were very biased in favor of the Democrats and against the Republicans, and I think they should be more objective than that. And after the election, it's even after the third debate, President Obama says, if you can't concede the loss of an election, then you're hurting the democracy of this country. In fact, he went on to say that if you have to whine and cry about it, you don't have the temperament to be in the White House. And from November 9th to date, that's all the Democrats have been doing, obstructing the transition, obstructing government. And to me, that borders on treason. And all President Trump is trying to do is defend our country against that. We should be solving the problems of this country. Everything I watched before the show at the rally, he just reiterated all the troubles that this country needs to solve, and people have to work together and do that.
Do you think that if the president continues to do these rallies, you mentioned his advisors are suggesting that they will do more, do you think that helps his message get out, circumvents the media, so to speak?
Well, I admit, I'm not a prophet, but I think I could see that that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get his message directly to the people. I mean, the people have got to all get together to solve the problems of the country. It's like even, earlier during the election, Bernie Sanders said it's not about Donald Trump, it's not about Hillary Clinton, and he even said it's not about Bernie Sanders. It's about the people getting together, and we got real problems in this country.
Thanks, Tom, for your input. Let's hear from Flint, Michigan next, and Debbie on our Democrats line.
Good morning. Thanks
Good morning.
for taking my call. No, I don't think that the media is the enemy of the people. That's a playbook right out of Steve Bannon's book. They're just trying to turn it so that when the media reports on them, then they have this window of doubt that they've created, and they've been trying to create it for a while now. But my message to Donald Trump is, with all these millionaires and billionaires in your cabinet, reach out to the Bill Gates and the Warren Buffetts and all these millionaires and have them all throw 1% into a pot until they have $340 million. You want to see a job plan? Cut us all a check for $1 million, because at the end of the day, all these corporate heads have made this money on the back of the working people. Pay us back. They bailed out everybody, but they're not bailing out us.
Let's hear what the Republican line has to say. We go to Patricia. In Minneapolis. Go ahead, Patricia. You're on the air.
Yes, I totally agree with President Trump. The media is the enemy of the people. You can listen to CNN. He's absolutely right. They have a real animus against him. They're just seething that they lost the election. They misreport. They ignore other important stories. For instance, the Democrats had 3 IT guys that stole computers, hacked into their emails, and there's nothing on there. They make up stories. For instance, CNN gave Hillary Clinton questions for the debate. Can you imagine if that happened to a Republican? MSNBC, it's nothing but negative spinning and twisting of everything. I hope he continues with these rallies because it is working. He's getting so much done in the White House. It's ridiculous to call it chaos. The only chaos has come from the obstruction and lying of the media.
Some of the reporting on the media has made drawn international attention with the meetings in Germany and in Brussels. This is an article from Bloomberg about reaction from the German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Merkel pushes back on Trump's media attacks, calls for respect. German Chancellor Angela Merkel expressed respect for the media in a point in contrast to U.S. President Donald Trump, whose latest Twitter blast labeled mainstream media outlets as, quote, the enemy of the American people. Quote, I stand by a free and independent press and have great respect for journalists, Merkel said at an international security conference in Munich with U.S. Vice President Mike Pence in the audience. Quote, we've always done well in Germany when we mutually respect each other. Bloomberg writes the comment is a rejoinder after a tumultuous week in Washington where Trump used part of a 77-minute press conference to pillory the U.S. media as dishonest and unfair. And more reporting from that meeting in Munich. The vice president, his first overseas trip, and the headline here this morning from the New York Times: Pence promises Europeans U.S. commitment to NATO is unwavering. They write that bearing what he said was a message from President Trump, Vice President Mike Pence told anxious political and security leaders on Saturday that the United States of America strongly supports NATO and will be unwavering in our commitment to this transatlantic alliance. But while offering that assurance to European partners, alarmed by Mr. Trump's rise, along with some of his rough words on Russia and Ukraine, Mr. Pence also warned that Europe must increase its military spending in a dangerous world, saying, quote, as you keep faith with us under President Trump, we will always keep faith with you. The NATO treaty, writes the New York Times, demands not only collective defense, but a vow to, quote, contribute our fair share to our common defense, Mr. Pence said at an annual security conference marking his first trip overseas as vice president. Back to your calls and comments. We hear from Jim in Newcastle, Delaware, on our Republican line. Morning, Jim.
Hey, good morning, Bill. How you doing?
Doing fine, thank you.
Good. I think part of the problem is the way that the journalist class is brought up through the educational system, where they tend to be crusaders. That's the reason they got into journalism, and they tend to support a one-size-fits-all solution to a lot of problems, which calls for federal activism, which has created the swamp down in Washington. And I think they're on the side of the swamp because they see the federal government as the solution to all the problems, whereas Trump wants to sort of decentralize power of the government, remove the power of the government in a lot of areas, and let individuals make their own decisions. And I think that's just against the general thinking of people who are in the media. But it also is good for ratings to be fighting with the president. I think the anti-Trump networks are probably doing okay. Fox News is doing quite well in the position of supporting the president. But, like Sherman said, he used to treat journalists as spies. It's just a conundrum that we have in this country right now, and I don't see anything that's going to change because the Democrats just won't accept the fact that they lost this election because they had a bad candidate and they had a opposition candidate in Trump who really had his pulse on the thing and on the pulse of America. So.
Do you think, Jim, that because the president has the House and the Senate, and he obviously doesn't have a presidential campaign to run now, at least for another 4 years, do you think that he really does see the media as the opposition, not only just as a political opposition, but as a good foil for his speeches, his tweets, etc.?
I think that's part of it, definitely. I think he's also using it as a way to try and get his fellow Republicans in line, because I know there are some really bad Republicans in the Senate right now that just seem to linger on the vine forever. And if he can get popular support against these people and try and get them replaced, maybe he'll be able to get his veto-proof Senate that he needs to enact a lot of the programs that he has. I wish there was more explanation of actually what he is trying to do in the media. There just seems to they pointed, oh, we're going to pass this, we're going to pass that, but they really don't talk about what actually that means. And I think the average person is left behind, especially if they don't really support Trump.
Do you think he needs to do more of the we saw that hour and 15-minute news conference on Friday, a lot of questions asked. Do you think he needs to do more things like that with the press? It was pretty direct.
Trump should have a 24-hour. They should just follow him around and just watch everything. I think he's very entertaining, and I think the more you see him, the more you understand what he's trying to do. I think if he is just edited, they're able to put up quite a negative view of him. But just follow Trump and listen to what he says, and I think he's doing a good job, actually. So.
Well, Jim, appreciate your calling in on this Sunday morning. The Meet the Press this morning, one of their guests will be Senator John McCain of Arizona, who has been overseas at the NATO meetings. That coming up this morning on NBC's Meet the Press, and of course our C-SPAN radio listeners will be able to hear it beginning at noon Eastern on C-SPAN radio. But he was asked about this tweet by Chuck Todd, the tweet by President Trump. Here's what Senator McCain had to say.
We need a free press. We must have it. It's vital. If you want to preserve, I'm very serious now, if you want to preserve democracy as we know it, you have to have a free and many times adversarial press. And without it, I'm afraid that we would lose so much of our individual liberties over time. That's how dictators get started.
That's how dictators get started, with tweets like that?
No, they get started by suppressing a free press. In other words, in consolidation of power, when you look at history, the first thing that dictators do is shut down the press. And I'm not saying that President Trump is trying to be a dictator. I'm just saying we need to learn the lessons of history.
Again, all of that on Meet the Press today, and all of the Sunday shows air on C-SPAN radio every Sunday beginning at noon Eastern. Back to your calls on President Trump's comment, is the media the enemy of the people? Muskegon, Michigan. Jesse, good morning on the Independent line.
Yeah, good morning. I just can't believe what I'm hearing. I mean, I'm an 85-year-old black man. I had to go back and educate myself when I was 43 years old because I was born in the South. I voted for Obama one time. I didn't vote for him again. The Democrat was using black people just for whenever they wanted to come out and vote for him. What I'm hearing now, I just can't hardly believe what I'm hearing. Trump is insane. This man forced himself on women, and these people you remember Jim Jones? Don't cut me off. You remember Jim Jones? All those people followed him. That's what we have right now with these people. I can't believe what I'm hearing. This man is insane.
All right, here's Tony in Wilmington, Illinois, Democrats line. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. You know, I have to agree with President Trump. What's worrying me is that this media is constantly beating this drum with Russia. It seems like it's endless, and they're at every angle to resort back to war with Russia. There's going to be no winners with that war, which is it's frightening, even the thought of it. I can't even believe that people even watch CNN anymore, because I can't. It's near impossible, because it seems that their angle is always at Russia. That's all I have to say, sir. Thank you for my call.
All right, Ellen's next. She's in Clearwater, Florida, on the Republican line. The media, are they the enemy of the people, Ellen? Go ahead.
No, they're not. They're not the enemy of the people. And for Trump to say that, I think it's a big joke.
Okay, Audrey Macon, Georgia, Democrats line. Go ahead.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
When President Obama took office, the Republicans said when he was being inaugurated, they were going to do everything they could to stop him. And for 8 years, they did nothing to help him. Well, that's neither here nor there, because that's over with now. But as for Donald Trump, he is using the media for himself. And he's talking about the media is the enemy and the media is doing this. The media is repeating what's coming out of that hole in his face. They are repeating what he himself is saying. And for the people to be following him with the kind of stuff that and what he's searching for, I believe, is attention that he did not get as a child. And that's sad, because if my child acted the way he's acting, I would be punishing that child every day. Donald Trump is a big child that's trying to grow up, and I think he's mentally retarded. So.
Let's hear from Gene in Savoy, Illinois. Question for you this morning: is Donald Trump the enemy of the people? Is the media the enemy?
He is.
Go ahead.
Right out of my mouth.
My faux pas. Go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
You're on the air.
I believe that Donald Trump and the entrenched Senate and House of Representatives is systematically dismantling all of our government agencies and now discrediting the press, so they have total control over what happens in our country. It's scaring the entire world, and all these people who think the press isn't important have to wake up, because he's doing a great job of brainwashing a whole lot of people in our country, and he's scaring the entire world.
Gene, what do you think about
He needs to get back in the White House and create all the millions of jobs that he said he was going to create. That's the one thing he's not doing, people, creating jobs. A few hundred jobs is not a lot of jobs.
Gene, let me ask you, what do you think about the caller earlier, Jim, I believe, said, well, this is maybe actually good for networks like CNN, like Fox. The ratings may be going up. They may actually like some of this attention. Do you think that they have a stake in continuing this sort of adversarial relationship with President Trump?
I think what is going on is Donald Trump is so inept as a president. He doesn't know what he's doing, so he's trying to distract the people with this rhetoric. He's a narcissist, and he's trying to distract the people with the rhetoric, and he's doing a great job of it. They believe whatever comes out of his mouth, even when it's a lie.
Gene, appreciate your calls, your comment, rather, more of your calls and comments. 202-748-8001 for Republicans, 202-748-8000 for Democrats, and for all others, 202-748-8002. This morning in the Washington Post, Karen Tumulty with a piece on our third historian survey of presidential leadership. And the headline from Karen Tumulty's piece: historians not wavering on best presidents. Lincoln, Washington, and the two Roosevelts keep their lock on the top spots in C-SPAN's third poll. And by the way, you can read the entire poll on our website. The historian survey of presidential leadership, covering all of the 43 men up through Barack Obama that have served as president of the United States. Nearly 100 historians participated in our survey, and again to look at the top five in the leadership survey. Abraham Lincoln receiving the top billing, with George Washington, Franklin Roosevelt, and Theodore Roosevelt remaining in the top five. Dwight Eisenhower entering the top five from number 8. And former President Barack Obama entering the ranks for the first time, obviously. We did the survey in 2000, then again in 2009 after the George W. Bush presidency, and here in 2016 with the results released on Thursday of our leadership survey. And again, all of that online at cspan.org/President Survey 2017. And look for our conversation coming up here in just under a half an hour or so with our three academic advisors on that survey: Edna Green Medford of Howard University, Doug Brinkley of Rice University, and presidential biographer and historian Richard Norton Smith. That's coming up at 8 o'clock Eastern. Back to your calls and comments. We go to Conrad next and hear from Rockledge, Pennsylvania. Good morning. Republican line.
Good morning. Boy, it's very difficult to get on this network. I watch this daily in the mornings.
Glad you got through.
Yeah, me too. I was an independent before Donald Trump got into the race, and I've got to agree. I'm glad you brought up this subject today, because I've had a lot to say, but unable to get on the network, on the C-SPAN. I'm a C-SPAN junkie. So I turned Republican because of Trump's direction, and I'm a Vietnam era veteran from 1963 to 67. And in the 1968 elections, I noticed that we were having protests at that time, but they were not all against the war. Some of them were against the fact that the major families that owned newspapers in this country were buying them all up. And we knew what was coming, which this election has obviously made it the most important part of direction, that they are controlling us. The media does control us. And they kept us in that war until 1974. But what I wanted to mention was some of the issues that came up. Hubert Humphrey, running against President Nixon, had mentioned in one of his rallies that eventually, in the future, that the Electoral College would be electing presidents. And he thought it was a good idea in '68 that we eliminate the Electoral College, which, as we see, actually Hillary won the election by, I think it was a little over 1,600,000 votes, but she lost because her electoral, not her electoral, but her election people didn't concentrate on the states that had the most
Conrad, go back to your comments. Go back to the 60s and that time. You're a Vietnam era vet. You mentioned Nixon and Humphrey. Some people are drawing some parallels to the way Richard Nixon viewed the media. And tie this into our question this morning. Is there a similarity between how Richard Nixon viewed the media and Donald Trump is viewing the media?
Well, but Nixon controlled government. He really had a big handle on what got done in government. He was a politician, as the word goes. We needed this time a total independent, because we have been controlled, totally controlled. And, you know, the Middle East situation is a perfect example of control, going all the way back to George H.W. Bush. So if we really take a serious look at him and his involvement in Iraq and Iran now.
We mentioned earlier Mike Pence's meetings in Munich at the conference there, also earlier at the NATO meetings as well, and at ABC News report this morning, on this Sunday morning, about Mike Pence and his wife visiting a concentration camp site in Germany. The Vice President and First Lady Karen Pence and their eldest daughter Charlotte visited a concentration camp Sunday near Munich, Germany. They were met by Karl Freller, the director of the Foundation of Bavarian Memorial Sites, and also a survivor of the camp, Abba Nor, a Jewish Lithuanian who lives in Israel. They walked around the camp, touring various areas, including the prison yard. They also spent some time in a building that contains exhibits about the Nazis. They stood before a large map showing the network of camps around Germany and Nazi-occupied countries elsewhere in Europe. To the Independent line next, we hear from Michael in Imperial Beach, California. Good morning.
Good morning, C-SPAN. And no, the media is not the enemy of the people. This is serious stuff. Trump's views on the media varies from station to station. He loves the stations that love him, and he hates the stations that don't agree with him. The man is a buffoon, run by his vice president and his quote-unquote advisors who only want power. And if the media is destroyed to the point that Trump wants to achieve, then we have lost any sense of checks and balances in this country forever. What do you think?
All right, to Gray, Georgia. Amy's next up on the Democrats line. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning. The media is not the enemy of the people. That's ridiculous. They are the enemy of an authoritarian and people who have authoritarian tendencies, like Trump voters. Trump is dangerous, but the people that follow him are even more dangerous. I want everybody to remember that an authoritarian has to have followers. The authoritarian keeps them riled up, keeps them afraid, keeps them angry. But it is the follower that will go out and implement the killing of our democracy. They will stifle the media. They will commit the violent acts that will be needed to shut down dissent. Remember, Hitler did not put a single person in a gas chamber. Thank you.
All right, to Oliver Springs, Tennessee. Jeff, good morning on the Republican line.
Hey, how are y'all doing this morning?
I'm doing fine, Jeff. Thank you.
I wouldn't say I follow an authoritarian, and I don't remember seeing Republicans out there protesting and bashing windows and private property. For me personally, I see Trump as someone who is more to get government out of my life, and that's how I look at it. Now, according to your question about the media being the enemy of the people, no, I don't see them as the enemy of the people as much as I see that they have bias one side or the other. And depending on their political beliefs, that's how they're going to lean. And the example I bring to that is Michael Flynn talking to the Russians before the inauguration. The media was all over that. And that was what they ran with day after day because they don't like Trump and they don't like Republicans. Flip side to that is, and, you know, I guess with Michael Flynn, I'm no lawyer. I don't know that if he broke the law or not. If he did, he should be prosecuted. Flip side of that is you had Hillary Clinton, who was in a very powerful position as Secretary of State, broke the law by having a private server in her home, and Lord knows what else she did. And, you know, the media, they didn't talk about it. I mean, they did talk about it, but they didn't push for investigations. They didn't really go after her like they should have because of their inherent bias. And when you talk about the enemy of the people, no, I wouldn't go that far. That might be a stretch because that's kind of maybe infringing on freedom of speech to say that my enemy I'm going to hush. And that's a little bit treacherous. But I do believe there is inherent bias in the media, more toward liberals than conservatives.
Why do you think that happens?
Oh, why do I think that happens?
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Well, if you look at the folks that are in the media, and I don't want to be perceived as being a profiler of any sort, but if you look at the folks that are in the media, they have biases. That, you know, they have agendas that they personally feel are important to them. I mean, look, for instance, again, you got Van Jones on CNN, who served in Obama's administration. You know, obviously he's going to be biased toward the liberal views.
Jeff, would you say, though, that
he served for Obama?
Yeah, would you say also that conservatives have a pretty good platform in things like Fox News and a number of people like Rush Limbaugh and other very successful conservative talk show hosts?
Yes, I would agree with that. Even though I am a conservative, yes, I do agree that, you know, Fox News, Rush Limbaugh, Hannity, Michael Levin, people like that, they have the conservative platform. But I would say that until recently, in my opinion, within the last 15 years, you didn't hear a lot of the conservative platform. And I think a lot of that's due to the Internet, the access to the Internet for people to gather other sources of media that have a conservative viewpoint, people like Rush Limbaugh and Levin and Fox News and, you know, the Twitter and Facebook. People can make up their own mind, and the conservative agenda can get out there more.
Jeff, I appreciate your comments. And he was talking in part of his comments about Michael Flynn, the now fired national security advisor. Politico and other news outlets reporting this morning about Donald Trump today interviewing potential replacements. Here's the headline: Politico, Trump to interview candidates for national security advisor. He's scheduled to speak with 4 candidates: Army strategist Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, former United Nations Ambassador John Bolton, acting National Security Advisor Keith Kellogg, and West Point Superintendent Lieutenant General Robert Caslen are all under consideration, Press Secretary Sean Spicer said, according to a pool report. So we should hear some more about that later today. Let's go to Michael in Monroeville, Ohio, Independent Line. Hi, Michael.
Good morning. Of course, the media is biased. If look at what's happening. Hillary Clinton was supposed to walk into the office. This woman was so corrupt with her foundation and everybody around her. Nobody went to jail for breaking our laws. Now, Trump is not part of the clique that was put into place over decades of the corruption. is an outsider. And we, the American people, have voted him in. When I went to bed, Hillary should have been president the next day. And I'll tell you what, I was so surprised when I woke up and found out that the people stood up for once. And as far as the media being biased, if every reporter did their job, half these people in Washington would be in prison. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Asking a question this morning about, in particular, a tweet on Friday from President Trump, but throughout the week he had a number of critical tweets on the media, going back actually to last Sunday when he left Mar-a-Lago last weekend and tweeted this after his ride from Mar-a-Lago to the airport. Just leaving Florida, big crowds of enthusiastic supporters lining the road that the fake news media refuses to mention. Very dishonest. He also returned to his criticisms of the media during the news conference late this week. Here's some of what he had to say.
I'm making this presentation directly to the American people with the media present, which is an honor to have you this morning, because many of our nation's reporters and folks will not tell you the truth and will not treat the wonderful people of our country with the respect that they deserve. And I hope going forward we can be a little bit different and maybe get along a little bit better if that's possible. Maybe it's not, and that's okay too. Unfortunately, much of the media in Washington, D.C., along with New York, Los Angeles in particular, speaks not for the people, but for the special interests and for those profiting off a very, very obviously broken system. The press has become so dishonest that if we don't talk about it, we are doing a tremendous disservice to the American people. Tremendous disservice. We have to talk about it to find out what's going on, because the press honestly is out of control. The level of dishonesty is out of control.
Our opening question on Washington Journal: is the media the enemy of the people? 202-748-8001 for Republicans, 202-748-8000 for Democrats, and 202-748-8002 for independents outside the U.S., 202-748-8003. Lots of tweets, too, at C-SPAN WJ. This one said, how is he not getting his message out? He has Fox, Savage, Beck, Ingram, Malkin, O'Reilly, Jones, and McConnell. Steve says, we won't be going to war with Russia. Lunatic in charge is inviting invasion, makes Ukraine look like a border skirmish. From this one saying, the press is not the enemy of the people. It is only the buffer between us and tyranny. I would go a step further than McCain. And David says, the hypocrisy of the free press bashing after free press created Donald Trump. Noreen's next. She's in Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts. Good morning, Democratic caller.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. I think the free press is very much the friend of the people. And I hope that the reporters continue with their investigative reporting. I'm very concerned about Donald Trump with his continued hostility toward the press. And I am glad that the news is fact-checking on a more consistent basis and immediately, as Donald Trump continues to say that he, won the election, for example, a much larger margin, by a much larger margin. And I'd like to give an example here in Boston of the sexual abuse scandal in the Catholic Church, where our wonderful Boston Globe reporters stood up to a powerful institution, and despite pushback from many, many people, and showed us what was really going on in the Catholic Church with our priests. Unfortunately, it was a very sad situation, but I think it's similar to Donald Trump, who doesn't want us to find out what is really going on and wants us to be distracted continuously by his chaos. And behind the scenes, he is wreaking havoc, and in public, his name-calling is very counterproductive. Thank you so much.
Here's Deltona, Florida. And Pham, good morning, Republican line.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Deltona, Florida. Go ahead, Pham. Good morning.
Yeah. Hi, good morning, and thanks for taking my call, number one. And number two, I hear that so many liberals are calling and, they're against Donald Trump. But look at this. I mean, this country has been corrupted by too many politicians and other, obviously, president in this country. And obviously, media is very corrupt because they're one-sided, and they have been totally against Trump from the very, very beginning. And the thing is, I'm saying they are dishonest. They're dishonest to people because they have a job to do, and their job is basically tell the truth to people, the old people, to tell the truth, not go one-sided. And all this, what Flynn did or comparing to Hillary Clinton, what she did to this country, really, it was a disaster. Nobody knew what she was doing. And now it has come out and it's been exposed. And she hasn't got even charges at all. So that's why I'm saying the totally government is corrupt, totally politician, even they are Republican or Democrat. They are totally, I believe only on two people in government, Dr. Ron Paul and Rand Paul. They are the most sincere. And I wish we had more people like him. And I'm sure Trump is trying to do good. And my gut feeling tell me, because from the beginning, I really, truly supported him. And I'm glad he's the president. Give him a chance. Right now, he's throwing all executive orders. But look at the Republicans. They are not even getting to the job because they have got majority in the House. They can get it done, everything, quickly. So that's why he has to come and tell people that what's happening.
The president holding his rally yesterday in Melbourne, Florida. Could be a series of rallies that we see, and certainly over the coming week or so with Congress out, the President's Day recess ahead and their district work period for members of Congress, lots of town halls across the country. Even ahead of the President's Day recess, some have been rowdy, but Huffington Post reporting on Tom Reed's town hall yesterday in New York. He's a Republican from New York. Constituents flood another GOP congressman's town halls and angrily confront him. They write, constituents of Tom Reed flooded two town halls on Saturday to confront and boo the congressman over GOP vows to repeal the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, and strip public funding from Planned Parenthood. One event was supposed to take place in a senior center in North Harmony, New York, but it moved outside because so many people showed up. Reed held three other town halls in Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, and Allegheny counties, and they write that attendees loudly booed Reed when he said he did not support public funds for Planned Parenthood. Here's Cooper, Texas, Independent Line. Margaret, welcome.
I'm not independent, I'm Democrat, but thank you. Good morning, C-SPAN.
Good morning.
I would just like to say that, I've since January 20th, I've held back. I've not called. I've not made judgments against Trump. I've tried to give him a chance. But is the news media the enemy? Are you kidding? This is amazing to me. I cannot understand how people could still not see that there is a serious situation in this country. Now, he's out campaigning, letting you know what he's going to do. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. You have the House. You have the Senate. Start doing already. We're with you. We want you to do whatever you say you're going to do, whatever it is. Start doing it. I'm tired of this. And then I thought I heard somewhere yesterday that those people that came into that rally yesterday, I think they were charged like $7 to go into that rally. What is going on, people? And he's sitting there saying, I'm going to bring the jobs back to America, while he's studying having things that he is in control of still being made and built in these other countries. Wake up, people. This is a joke. And that news conference that he had the other day, that 77-minute clown show, I just could not watch it anymore. It was just, sit down. You do this. You do that. Are you guys kidding? This is our country we're talking about here, people.
All right, that's Margaret on the Democrats line. Now we go to Independent Line. We hear from Howard, Kansas, and Sandy. Hello there.
Hello. I don't believe the news media, the reporters and whatnot are actually the problem. It's the people that own the station. They have to say what they're saying, or they're going to lose their job and their livelihood. They have to do what they're doing. Yes, they're biased. The woman before that said that Donald Trump is riling up the people and making them crazy and going out and being angry. That's what the other side is doing, and it's obvious. They're being paid. They stay on tape. Yeah, Soros is paying us. It's like, for crying out loud, people, they just need to go and do a little research. Study history, for crying out loud. This is what happened in Germany and before the Auschwitz and all of the concentration camps. That's what all the FEMA camps are for. They were going to do the same thing here. Donald Trump stopped them. People need to really research and wake up because he's trying to save our country.
Lots of comments on Twitter as well. Virginia Texan tweeting that so liberals don't want our president criticizing corporations exercising their rights under the First Amendment. Laura says a free press is essential to a functioning democracy. Demonizing information is a terrifying trend. And Jim says, did the Washington Post assign an equal number of dirt diggers to crawl in Hillary Rodham Clinton's filth as they did Trump? I'll answer that, no. Costa Mesa, California, it's Jim on our Democrats line. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for C-SPAN. I've been critical of the media. I don't like it that they combine entertainment with news making. I've seen that happen more and more. But this is a very unsophisticated argument by President Bush. He says that, the media is the enemy of the people. I'm on the media right now. This is the media. And when John McCain says this is how dictators get started, and he says that I'm not saying that's what Trump is trying to do, that's exactly what he's trying to do. He's throwing this simple idea out to people that the media is the enemy of the people. What's his criticisms? And when he's accused of lying, he shoots back, not with the truth, but he's confronted. I think that it's good that he's confronted by the media, but it is scary, and I'm not afraid to use the word fascism. If you look up the definition of this, is exactly what he's been trying to do.
Let's go to our Republican line next and hear from Patrick in Oxford, Ohio.
Speaking from perspective of someone who is actually a journalist on the entire media situation, disagree that media, I think the term bias is far more appropriate. We see the majority of media companies are owned by individuals that have left lean, and thus their reporting is done with the left way to appease a left audience.
Well, Patrick, aren't some of those big media organizations or public companies? They're owned by lots of people, lots of shareholders.
Yeah, but it's still a power structure. Granted they're shareholders, but you have your CEOs. The issue that I see, though, Trump may not always speak the right words. President Trump, first and foremost, the people have to just constantly remember, is President Trump is not a politician. President Trump is a real estate investor and developer. He's a regular guy. He spoke to regular blue-collar Americans. Those are the people that voted for him and supported him.
We had somebody on Twitter, Natalie, on Twitter on a comment about paid protesters. She says that the protesters are not paid. I used to live in Melbourne. Those are real people, not paid protesters. And James tweets about her question saying there are 10 million angry Americans. The dying media claims it's most of us. A couple more calls here. We go to Bedminster, New Jersey, and hear from Tom on our independent line.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
C-SPAN. I see what's going on not as a Republican or Democrat thing or a liberal conservative thing. Those are distractions. Those keep the population divided. What I see going on is a war almost between the permanent government, the deep state, meaning the military and the intelligence agencies, versus the elected democratically elected president. Evidence of this could be seen last week in the New York Times and Washington Post on the same day, having the same article, and also the business about Flynn. Those were intelligence leaks. And the only people who have access to that is probably NSA or CIA. These people don't want to be controlled by the democratic aspect of our government. These people want power, and they have media assets, they call them, which has a powerful effect on the way all the people in this country perceive the news. Now, we've known this since at least the 1970s when the Pike Committee last investigated the intelligence agencies. I don't like Donald Trump, but I do like that he's appointed someone to go investigate the intelligence agencies because they interfere in our domestic politics way more than they're supposed to. And they have media assets, and to the extent that their media says what the intelligence agencies want them to say, they're enemies of democracy.
And on those intelligence stories in the New York Times and Washington Post this week, the president tweeted this week about that, saying that information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post by the intelligence community, NSA and FBI, ? Just like Russia, the tweet of President Trump this week. Here's Houston, Texas. We continue with your calls and your thoughts on the media. Are they the enemy of the people? Houston, Texas, Republican line. Lynn, hi there.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Yes, I do think that the present media is the enemy of the people. They shouldn't be. They should be the advocate for the people, but they are promoting an agenda. Anyone who wants to know exactly where they're coming from should read the book I Led 3 Lives by Herbert Philbrick. It was published in the early 1950s, and you can see how the agenda has been promoted and has been going on since the early 1950s and even before that. The book, again, is I Led 3 Lives by Herbert Philbrick. You can also see it on YouTube, and it was made into some very early 1950s television programs. But since I've been on here, I have been hearing from the people who are against Trump the following words: scary, fascist, Hitler. I mean, is this the kind of language that we really want to use with each other here in this country? I mean, really.
Lynn, appreciate your comments this morning. Headline this morning in the Wall Street Journal online at WSJ.com about a potential revision in one of Donald Trump's executive orders. Their headline: Donald Trump's revised travel ban would cover 7 countries from prior order. Draft of replacement executive order reverses inclusion of green card holders. Indefinite ban on Syrian refugees could be scrapped. They write that a current draft of President Trump's replacement executive order on immigration and refugees shows that the administration would try to keep temporary travel restrictions on citizens of 7 Muslim-majority countries, according to an internal State Department memo discussing the document. The Wall Street Journal writes the new order would, however, reverse the previous directive's inclusion of green card holders from those countries, according to a State Department memo, which was reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. Tom, next up in Dayton, Ohio. Welcome, Independent Line.
Good morning. I think a lot of this is the media is pretty much a globalist institution, and that's what they all are. And I'm not a racist because I did vote for President Obama. I'll give him a shout out. But yes, I voted for Donald Trump because he's a nationalist, a Make America Great first. I don't know what's wrong with that. We've doubled our population in the last 20 years. Do we want to double the population in the next 20 years? Because there's a lot of Americans out here that haven't had a raise in 30 years. And that's one reason I didn't vote for President Obama again, because he got out there and told me, when we bring in all these immigrants from all over the world, it don't hurt the wages of the American people. That's a lie. And God bless America, and go Donald Trump.
All right. Vivian in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Good morning, Democrats line.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the media, and I'm glad the media is doing what they're doing. I wish they would do a little more. Donald Trump, family, and him have all of their jobs created overseas. And what's so scary is not Donald Trump, it's his followers, because they don't even Google. They can't even Google and see what this man is about. No, he's not a politician, but he tried to run for president 3 times. Google it, people. Get on the internet and look at what he has done.
Other stories this morning include the reporting on the death of Norma McCorvey. Headline in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times this morning, As Jane Roe, she symbolized abortion divide. Norma McCorvey, the anonymous plaintiff in Roe v. Wade, the landmark 1973 Supreme Court ruling that legalized abortion in the United States, reshaping the nation's social and political landscapes and inflaming one of the most divisive controversies of the past half-century, died on Saturday in Katy, Texas. She was 69. Her death at an assisted living home was confirmed by Joshua Prager, a New York journalist who is writing a book about the Roe v. Wade decision and had interviewed her extensively. He said the cause was heart failure. Robert McFadden of the New York Times writes that since the ruling, perhaps 50 million legal abortions have been performed in the United States, although later court decisions and new state and federal laws have imposed restrictions and abortions have declined with wide use of contraceptives. Theological, ethical, and legal debates about abortions continue in religious circles, governing bodies, and political campaigns. Tyrone, New York. It's Michael on the Republican line. Michael in New York, go ahead.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
The hypocrisy is amazing with this president. Here he's going after the media saying, oh, don't believe all these fake news articles, when he's the one that's wielding things that are not truthful. Okay? He loves being on television. He's eating this right up. He's taken all that free media time, yet he criticizes the media. It's a hypocrisy. The guy's a hypocrite. When he got elected, he's just using the people to wield his billionaire agenda. And this is what we have in the whole system, is all these billionaires that were appointed into positions that shouldn't have been. And now we're going to face the facts, folks. This country is in trouble. And you got a guy in there that's a hypocrite. Enough said.
Oswego, New York. We go to Myra on our Democrats line. Good morning.
Good morning. Back when the media was criticized rightly for not digging about weapons of mass destruction, and they were criticized because it seemed like everybody wanted to be patriotic. Now, Donald Trump was not challenged in the very beginning when he when he tried being, in the primary. Mm-hmm. He was not challenged. Now they're challenging him. I saw the press conference the other day, and it was great when he was challenged about the electoral vote. That his was the largest since Reagan's, and the journalist said, "What about Obama? What about Bush?" He needs to be challenged. It's like, I wish they had fact check right in the ear so they could, because he lies all the time.
Appreciate your calls and comments and more ahead. On this President's Day weekend,